Hey, it's Aaron Silber with Silber Fixes It, and now that we've gotten our educational license of Autodesk Inventor 2010 and installed it, we're going to start creating a door wedge. I don't know if that's the actual name. It's just one of those things that, you put in the door when it's on a spring or something and you don't want it to close. But this is just a good way to get started with learning some of the tools in two-dimensional sketching and then using another one of the methods in Autodesk Inventor. We're going to manipulate it and kind of push it into a third dimension. So we're going to do new. I'm actually going to, what I just did was new and then standard.ipt. IPT is a 3D part file. Inventor part file, that's what it stands for. So the tools in this right bar over here are your navigation cube, changes angles, your pan tool moves you around on the grid, it's a little hand, and the zoom all tool that defines kinda no sorry it zooms out to a distance where you can see everything that you're currently working on. So that's pretty useful. And on the steering wheel here, you can choose orbit, then we can go back and just, there's zoom, just a lot of the different tools on the steering wheel. Then you just close that out. So we're going to start by making our triangle. Just any other way you'd start in, MS Paint or anything. So now that we've made our triangle, that was really easy. We're gonna say, we're gonna zoom all, right click, and do show all constraints. So the idea behind a constraint is it's Inventor's way of specifying how the geometry glues together. This constraint right here, the vertical constraint, so that shows that this is going to be, I believe, perpendicular, actually parallel to the y-axis, adjacent to the x-axis, I believe. So what we're just going to leave that there, and we're going to apply a dimension constraint. So let's say we're an engineer for a company, and they said to us that this has to be, let's say, 3 inches tall. So now our triangle changes and our hypotenuse will adjust accordingly because of the constraints that were applied when we first drew it. So then our company told us, has to be 8 inches long. So we're going to apply a constraint on the bottom line. And if you were to apply a dimension constraint to the hypotenuse, you'll see that it'll come up with a window about a driven dimension. And if you accept that, you'll see that it's let's just zoom in right here. The dimension itself is in parentheses because it's not a dimension you can edit. Right over there. It's not a dimension you can edit because there's too many variables, and editing that would really not work. If you ever took algebra or something, you'll know what I mean. But you can affect that variable up there by changing this one. This is actually measuring, rather than the distance of the hypotenuse, the distance linearly from this point to that point on the x-axis. But now that we have our thing at 9 inches long and 3 inches tall, we're going to change our view, zoom all once again, and then under the sketch tab, we're going to click finish sketch. This will take us out of that nice grid two-dimensional environment. And then we're going to click extrude. So extrude takes a drawing we made in 2 dimensions and kind of takes it and just, if you were to make a die of your drawing and then squeeze something through it. That's what extrude is doing. So our company tells us it's got to be 2 inches wide. So right here we're just going to hit 2 inches. These buttons change the direction it's going. This one will make it go both directions away from your sketch. This, just mess around with it. Then we're going to click OK. So now we have our nice little door wedge in 3 dimensions. So now we have all these tools that, if we were told we have to put a chamfer on, we'd hit chamfer, select the edges, and then say, it's 0.5 inches. That's not really as much of a door wedge anymore, but fillets, similar way. We now have a very rounded door edge. You can hit Control Z every time. And, there's a lot of different tools right here. One important one we're going to focus on right now is actually creating another 2-dimensional sketch. Because once you have a figure like this, you're not going to be able to get all the details you need in one sketch and then extrude it. So say we need to put a hole down like that on this plane. Well, we're going to click this plane, highlight it, do a right click, and click New Sketch. You can also hit Create 2D Sketch up there. But now we're working on the same plane as the top of our wedge. So what we're going to do is create a line. It's going to snap to the midpoint, unless you change it to not snap, which is kind of hard to do, and I don't see why you would do that. But now we just made a little T right there. And here's a useful way to center things. You're going to hit split over here under modify, and use that in that line, then use that in this line. So now we actually have 4 different lines, and we're going to apply an equal constraint to ones opposite each other. So now this line is trying to be the same length as this line, and this line is trying to be the same length as this one. So this point right here, if we zoom in, we're going to place a point. I don't know if I can do a coincident constraint, but it already exists because we put that right there. It kind of assumes some of the constraints. So now that we have a centered hole right there, not a hole yet actually, just a point, we're going to hit Finish Sketch, zoom all, go to Hole, and hit that. So we'll see that it's going to try and make a hole through it. And we can set the distance by, maybe, usually, I think you can hit termination through all, so it will just go all the way through everything. And then, set a diameter, let's say 0.5 inches. I don't know, maybe you need to put your door wedge on a string or something. But more importantly, distance, you can hit how long you want to be, the hole. And you can specify whether it's going to have a real drill point or a perfectly flat one, and you can define the angle, all that kind of things, all that kind of stuff. And just select the point right there. We're going to hit through all so that we just get it drilled through everything. And then we're going to have, if we go back to our front view, we have a wedge with a hole through it. Save often, because it crashes, despite how good it is. Door wedge.ipt. They save as IPT for inventor part file. And so next we're going to turn it into a 2-dimensional sketch. Back into a 2-dimensional sketch, like an isometric projection. So watch the next video if you want, and have fun fooling around with Inventor.